carry on, and we'll make the best of it.
Not sure, maybe it's the calibration on the Zoom room, but I'll just try to talk really loudly and hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks for having us today. Yeah, we've been working with Fenestration Canada for a couple years now, so it's really nice to get a chance to chat with some of the members. What I'm gonna walk you through today is just a bit of a demo of how our tool works, but before that, a little bit of rationale as to why we even created this tool at all. And you all can feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have questions about anything. It's usually a lot more fun to present this kind of stuff when people jump in and have questions and want to have conversations. So you're very free to do that, or you can also save your questions to the end, whatever you prefer. But I'm totally open to you just jumping in. So looking forward to it. With that, I'll go ahead and get started. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, if you work with building code, it's a little bit of a moving target. So the reason why we kind of created our tool, Trax Codes, was to try and address the kind of shifting cycles for codes. So as I'm sure you're all aware, the national codes update on their own cycle, provincial codes update on their own cycle, and then there's off-cycle kind of amendments that can happen in some provinces as frequently as every 6 weeks. So that's a lot of varying timescales of information being updated, whether you're using the physical books or binders or using the PDF version. It's really difficult to keep up with all of those updates, where to find them, and what's the most current version of any of the codes or regulations. And so we were trying to use the codes ourselves at one point, and we realized it's just really difficult to understand what the mandatory requirements are. So we decided to create a product to kind of help people with that. Some people ask us, well, there is a digital version. There's the PDF. Why isn't the PDF just good enough? There are a few reasons for that. One is that it's not encoded. So PDFs are really easy to use documents for human beings to read. They're essentially just digital paper, but they're not encoded. So if you're working with any kind of software or now AI, it can't easily understand the content that's in a PDF. It's also really difficult to search within PDFs. Maybe some of you have experienced that. Because that information is not encoded, it's not easy to kind of parse out different elements in a search. It's really difficult to understand the different versions and carry forward changes and all of that sort of thing, links to other documents like acts or applicable law. As I mentioned, it's difficult for PDFs to connect to other tools or systems, depending on any kind of software you might be using. There's no embedded logic, it's just kind of written text. So again, it's not very interoperable between tools. And then PDF obviously poses the issue of that people can interpret the information in such a document differently, which is part of where kind of slowdowns with the approvals process sometimes happen in relation to regulations. So these are kind of some of the reasons why PDF still provides a challenge. So we've kind of moved from the physical book to having some sort of a digital version, but there's still a need for that to be more refined, more intelligent, and to kind of move forward as we're all starting to use more digital systems in our work. And so that's kind of our vision with Trax and our tool, Trax Codes. We're trying to move towards a future where everything's consolidated, current, and up to date. So as you can see, each element in this little diagram has its own arrow around it, implying that everything updates on these varying cycles, as I mentioned earlier. So we're trying to consolidate things like codes, acts, intents, hopefully at some point standards from a variety of organizations, as well as a few others into one location so that they can all be searched, easily accessed, linked to one another when there are references between them, and also use AI to help people navigate and figure out where they're going. So that's what we've started doing with our tool, which is called Trax Codes. So what we have, I'll go into this more later, but we've got over 20,000 pages of enriched building codes, acts, regulations for the entire country. So we have both the national building codes and energy codes, all of those, as well as the different provincial codes. So British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, almost any province that has its own kind of version of the codes, except Quebec at this point. We're still working on getting a licensing agreement with Quebec, but stay tuned. And so just to give you a bit of background on us as a company before I jump into a demo, we've licensed all of the material that I mentioned directly from the governing bodies that create the content. So whether it's national, provincial, or acts and amendments, it's all coming directly from those government sources with an explicit licensing agreement so that we know and you know that we have the most current version of all of that information and that we're not scraping it off of the internet, for example. We're getting it from the official governing body. And currently, we've got about 300 different municipalities that are using the tool as paying customers. So those could be building officials, plans reviewers, inspectors, and we also have a few fire prevention officers, different departments, lawyers, and planners that all access those regulations through Trax Codes as well as people on the industry side. So that could be including people such as yourselves working in fenestration, or it could be architects, engineers, designers, builder developers, as well as code consultants and contractors. So we've got kind of a nice spread across government and industry at this point of professionals and municipal officials using the tool. Here's just to give you a deeper dive on some of the municipalities that are current customers of ours. We've got a nice spread across the country: Whitehorse, Surrey, Ottawa, and lots of Ontario municipalities as well. We also have quite a few in Saskatchewan. We just released the Manitoba codes in the tool, as well as a bunch in Atlantic Canada. So this just gives you a little snippet, but it doesn't cover everybody. We're essentially at the point where the number of municipalities that use our tool represents about 21% of Canada's population, which is a fun achievement for us. It's only been a couple of years. We launched the tool in 2022, so a pretty rapid adoption across government, which can be challenging to get into. And then, as I mentioned, lots of industry customers that have found us as well, including associations like Fenestration Canada. So we're working with lots of different firms and architectural offices, engineering offices across the country. And lastly, to just kind of round out about us and the work that we do before I give you that demo, is we also work with a few federal clients. So we've been doing some projects with Accessibility Standards Canada, specifically where we help them visualize some of their standards. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those standards into our tool as well at some point through that collaboration. And we're also working directly with the NRC on trying to improve the quality of the tables. I know the tables are something that a lot of our customers say are challenging to use. The formatting is difficult, and there's a lot of information in tables. So we've been working directly with them as a consultant to help them improve the formatting of the tables, not only for machine readability, but also for human readability, to make sure that it's serving both audiences, any changes that might be made to how tables are formatted. Yeah, so maybe I'll just pause there for a second if anyone has any questions about Trax as a company before I just jump into a little bit about the tool. Yeah, feel free to come off mute if you have any questions at all.
As a note, you can also add items to the Q&A for Ellen and the rest of us to answer afterwards.
All right, I'll keep going then. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have done a free trial of Trax Codes, but you're very welcome to do one. We offer a 30-day free trial with no credit card information, so you can just experiment. You don't have to worry about getting billed or charged at any point. So what I'll show you is a little kind of preview of the tool, but you can obviously feel free to follow along if you want to sign up for the free trial, or do so afterwards, and you can always write us if you have any questions. But if you do decide to do a free trial, what you'll see is that there's essentially two tabs at the top of the screen. I'm kind of zoomed in here. This isn't what they look like in the tool, but you'll see library and you'll see projects. So I'll just briefly take you through what each of those options does and show you what that looks like in the tool, so you can get a sense of how you might navigate if you chose to use it. So we'll start off with library. So it's essentially a structured library with search. And what you'll see if you log in or do a trial is that you would first set your jurisdiction. So you'll have the option to choose which province you want to look at content from, or you can also choose national if you want to see at the national level, or all if you're working across provinces and you want to search for something across a number of jurisdictions. So that's what you're first kind of confronted with. And then you can also select the type of content you're looking for at the bottom there. So you'll see whether you want to look for codes, acts, or other sorts of content that we have in the system. Some of the examples I'll show are Ontario specific in this deck, but as I mentioned, we do have all of the provinces that are listed here. So I'll try to show you a variety of options, but in this case, we're showing Ontario. So when you actually click on one of the options, say Ontario Building Code 2024, Volume 1, you can see all the different versions that are there, the dates that those versions were released. And if you click down into one of them, one of the ways that we kind of enrich the codes with that kind of structured data set that I was talking about is by having an explicit document hierarchy and all the official structures that are in the acts and codes. So you'll see a little bit of that over at the right. Parts, sections, subsections, articles, all of those we have kind of sectioned out so that you can work with them more individually and have an easier time kind of copying that information out or looking to reference other information. Speaking of which, we've added in automated links to all of the different associated content that we can. So I think when we first did this, it was something like 10,000 links that we added to the building code. So that's a lot of cross-referencing that you would have to do if you were looking at the actual binder or a PDF version. So we've tried to make that as easy as possible so that you can absolutely just click on a link when it's there instead of having to flip to another resource. We've also added in the option of showing all of the automated unit conversions in both metric or imperial. This was something that a lot of customers were asking for, and we learned that a lot of customers annotate their notebooks with these conversions. So we thought we could just do that automatically for people to make things a little bit simpler. And we've also added in terms and definitions. So you can see all of those highlighted in purple, and you can easily and quickly click on them if you just need a refresh on what a specific item refers to and how it's defined, just to make things simple for everybody. So that's a little bit about how we've structured the data. The search is something that's really popular with our customers. So the same way you would expect in any search engine, you can do a quick and easy keyword search. The difference here is that you can specify your jurisdiction, if you want the most current version of the codes, and what sort of documents, whether it's a code or an act or another type of document that you want to be searching in. And you can jump to that result in the hierarchy very easily. It also shows you the document hierarchy right underneath the option. So you can see that this search for doors has yielded the first option here, fire access doors, and then it shows you the different kind of sections that are within that document just below. So if you know exactly what you're looking for, you could just get to that really quickly and easily, or you could open the document itself and skim through all the content itself, whatever you're looking to accomplish. You can also search by a few other options, so not just keyword search. You can also look at tables, you can look at figures, terms, and we also have an AI option available as well, which I'll go into a little bit more. But just to give you a sense what each of those options looks like, so there's over 2,800 figures. So if you know what you're looking for is a figure, you can search specifically under that option. And the same goes for terms, defined terms, as well as the question and answer, which we'll get to. Another option is you can search the database as I've just kind of described, but if you know there's a specific piece that you're looking for in a certain code, you can search within that document exclusively rather than across the library. So if you very specifically just work in one sort of document, you can also use all of those features within that particular document. So in this case, searching directly within a code, clicking on a result will scroll to that in the hierarchy, and this kind of helps to maintain context so that you can understand exactly where you are and what you're looking at. And you can also sort your search results. So I know a lot of people use particular sections of the code. You might be using part 3 or part 9 or some other part that's specific to your work. So you can also kind of sort your search by best match or by indexing it, which allows you to see everything in numerical order if you know that you only kind of leverage things in a certain section, which is this button right here. All right, so the AI functionality. So we do also have a last search option, which is called question and answer. Question and answer is essentially your opportunity to ask a plain language question to the codes with all of the same kind of search toggles that we've already been talking about. So whether you want the most current version of a particular code or a past version that we have in our system, and the jurisdiction. And the uniqueness here is really that if you've tried any large language models or generative AI tools like Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, they don't really offer you the opportunity to understand where the answer is coming from. So here we're providing a question, the answer to that question based on the particular code that we're looking in, which is the most current version of the OBC. And then it provides references to where it generated that summarized answer from. So obviously an AI system won't have the specific context of your work, the real world conditions, the site specific conditions. It won't know any of that, but you can ask a question and get a generalized answer, and then you can quickly navigate to that area and obviously use your own expertise as professionals and as experts to interpret that answer based on the specific situation you're asking about. So we do always give a little disclaimer, as all AI tools do at this stage, that you need to check the facts. And so the reason for that is because obviously the tool doesn't have all of your real world context. But our hope is to get you as close as we can to those answers within the code quickly and easily so that you can specifically search what you're looking for with all of those transparent references to help validate the information. So yeah, that's how the Q&A tool works. And here's just a drop down into that information. So you saw the summary on the previous slide, and then this is what would happen if you clicked on that reference. It would take you to exactly where that information, that summarized answer, had come from within the code document that you're asking the question to. So yeah, a cool way to kind of ask questions to a specific data set. We're bounded exclusively to our licensed code database. So the tool can't make up answers the way you might have experienced with other AI tools, where it will try to use language patterns to give you an answer that sounds realistic and believable to a given situation. Because there are very much right and wrong answers within the regulatory space, this is specifically bounded to that codes data set that I've been talking about. And it will tell you if you ask an irrelevant question, a question it doesn't have the answer to, like what is the weather today? It will just say, I don't know. So we've specifically calibrated it to be safer for use in the regulatory space by experts. Another cool feature that we have, especially if you're working across jurisdictions, is the compare document feature. So you can actually compare one document to another. In this example, it's the OBC, but you could also compare a previous version of the National Building Codes to the most recent version. You could compare the most recent BCBC 24 to a previous version of the NBC. So there's a few different compare options if you just want to see what's changed when a new version of the codes comes out and it's automatically updated in our system. So you can quickly and easily see what's new. And you can also choose the kind of second option up there on the screen in blue, the only show changes option. And that will just show you exclusively sections that have changed and kind of edit everything else away in your view so that you can quickly and easily understand what's relevant and applicable to you. If something changed exclusively in one section, but that's not a section that you in particular engage with in your work, then you can just really easily understand that any update that's happened maybe doesn't have impact on your work specifically. So yeah, this is a feature that we've gotten a lot of good feedback on from our customers. It's still a work in progress. There's no incredibly tested and tried and true way of comparing two digital documents. So it is still a work in progress, but it at least takes people closer to understanding code changes as they come out. We've also tried to make the navigation and interpretation a little bit easier by having a tree table of contents, having a history button so you can go back if you've been browsing through a number of things and look at previously visited items. There are also links referenced and pop-up definitions that you can take a look at as well. You can also open as many tabs as you'd like at a given time. So if you're kind of comparing across a number of different documents, you can open as many windows in your browser of Trax as you like. We don't limit that. So if you need to be working in 3 different windows across several monitors, if you're hardcore like that, you definitely have the option. And you can also take a look directly at the table of contents here, and you can just duplicate, as I was saying, so that you can have multiple pages or browser windows open at the same time. We also understand that a lot of customers are collaborating with other people, so you might at some point want to share a certain section of the code at any level of the hierarchy. So as I said, it's broken down into all of those different articles, subsections, et cetera, et cetera. So you can select whichever most granular layer you need to share with someone else. And you've got a number of different copying options here on the right. So you can copy a link, a URL, you can copy a reference to that section, you can copy the content itself. Or you can copy plain text. I know some customers are working with other software tools, and copying over information can cause some formatting issues. So we added the plain text option so that there won't be any formatting issues if you're sharing something with another service. And you can also obviously print. I imagine most people wouldn't want to be printing to paper, but you can print to a PDF if you want to share with someone that's not using Trax Codes. You can also share with people who aren't customers of Trax Codes, but might just sign up for a free trial. So that 1 month free trial also helps as kind of a buffer when you're collaborating with others, but you've got the backup option of printing to PDF if you need to. When you're copying information out of any of the regulatory documents, all of the formatting will be maintained. So we render everything so that if there's, say, an equation, like in this example, it will show up looking exactly as it looks to you when you're using the tool. And all of the links will also remain embedded. So if the person is using Trax Codes or is doing a trial, they can also easily navigate to all the references that are here as well. So we've tried to make it as continuous as possible, regardless of who you might be working with, whether they're inside your organization and also have access to the tool, or outside and might have a varying degree of access to the tool. You can also paste into e-permitting systems. I've kind of gone over this already. This is just to help you visualize what I was describing. So you can copy into any of the documents listed here: Word, Excel, Google Docs, email, and as I was mentioning, that print to PDF or paper option if you're working with someone outside. You can also share links if you're using mobile with someone, so texting or WhatsApp or what have you if you're out in the field or on site. All right, so that kind of covers all of the library search and sharing capabilities specific to our digital library of codes. I'll just show you as our last part of the demo another option. So we mentioned earlier those 2 different tabs in the tool that'll be at the top, library and projects. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what projects is, and then we can chat through any questions that anyone has. Just so you've got a full idea of the functionality. So we also have a feature that allows you to annotate the codes and collect your own information, whereas the previous section I was showing you different ways of viewing and kind of interacting with content. Here you can actually bookmark, highlight, make comments, and add file attachments. So if you're working on a particular project, maybe an installation at a particular site, you could be collaborating across kind of professional practices or trades. So you can collect all of that information in one space. You can create a particular, as we call it, project, which has the name of the project. You can add a logo. You can do a flyover of the particular location in our map feature here. And then you can also collect material that's relevant to that particular site or project. So in this case, you can attach any file type. We recognize almost all file types. So you could have building plans or designs, whatever might be relevant to your particular workflow and project, and have all of these kind of accumulated in one space with a preview option available as well. And you can also collect all your code references here. So if you're kind of having a back and forth on your team about interpreting code or applying code in a particular context, you can, as you're browsing the codes in the library, collect those bookmarks and comments and conversations and aggregate them as they relate to a particular project. So you can see all of that work in one place and quickly jump back to a section of the codes that's relevant to that project. And this is just to give you a sense of what the annotations and the comments look like. So if there's a couple members of your team working on a shared project, you can kind of go back and forth right in the tool, in the codes itself about that content. And you can also add additional collaborators, so you can have as many collaborators as you like across your team, all able to view the same document. And similar to what I was showing you in the library, you can also export all of that code research and project work as a Word document and share that if you need to with others on the team or external groups you're working with. So same kind of deal. It'll render everything and show you all of that accumulated research as it relates to a particular site or installation or what have you. And lastly, we do also have an app version of the tool. So what I've been showing you is mostly in a desktop browser, but we do also have a Trax app both in the Apple Store with Microsoft and on Google Play. So if you're out in the field, if you're doing an installation, if you're working with Site Super, you can also pull up the codes directly on your phone as well as your projects and reference anything you might need on a mobile device. We also have a lot of customers that like to use their tablets out in the field. So you can pull them up right on site. If you're working somewhere that might have limited connectivity or access to data, you can also cache the codes directly to your device before you go into that low connectivity zone while you're in airplane mode and still be able to browse through everything. You won't be able to use the search or the AI functionality if you don't have any data or Wi-Fi, but you will be able to still access the digital documents and scroll through everything and access all of that content on your mobile device if you work in a remote area, for example. All right, so this is the last section. This is just a little bit of information about getting started. If this was interesting to you at all and you want to give a trial a go, we do offer a new training that just launched about a month or so ago. So we do have a full kind of self-led Trax Codes training. So some of what I showed you today and more is in this training where you can understand the full suite of features. You can explore all of the different functionality of search, of library, of projects, and it's not bound. So you can just jump around between the sections whenever you might need a refresh on something. And it's pretty easy to find. When you're in the tool itself, you just go up to your profile icon. There's an option called training, and then you can choose whichever training you'd like to start engaging with. So that might even be new to Terry and Adrian. I'm sure you guys are like super pro at using it now, but if there's ever anything that's unclear, you can always use this section to help you find more information. All right. Yeah, and that's it for me. Feel free if anyone wants to give it a go, and you can if you have questions.
That's great. I did see the email about the training, but I haven't done it yet. I'm still not as proficient as I should be. I do have a couple of questions. The conversation around links and URLs, those all take you back to Trax, right? Those aren't links to like online code availability.
No, yeah, they are links directly into the tool.
Okay.
If you're working with someone who doesn't have Trax codes, they can easily do the free trial, and we don't take any credit card info, so they can do that. Or you can, as I mentioned, just copy out the actual section itself or send them a PDF version. So we've tried to make it as accessible and inclusive as possible, so people have lots of options for accessing the content and sharing it with each other.
Okay, no, great. Okay, so question from Jatin from AWI. How often do the codes get updated in Trax's database? So I know that you have current and historical. How quickly would a new version get into Trax?
Yeah, so I can give a couple of examples. It typically only takes us a couple of days to add in an update. So with the physical book, you might be waiting like a week or more to actually get those pages. And with the PDF, it's kind of unclear sometimes when those updates happen. So with us, it's only taking a couple of days for small typical amendments that happen throughout the process. For something like a new version of the codes, like in Ontario, we had a new version recently, and that was a really huge overhaul. That there was a lot of changes. Because we work directly with the provinces and with NRC, we typically know that those are coming. And so for that change, it took us actually 2 months to work on that, but we still had it released before the code was enacted because we're working directly with government. So we have that information up front so that we can get the changes into the system as soon as possible or before they happen.
Okay, excellent. I know you
And
mentioned it.
sorry, go ahead, Terry.
I know you mentioned it, but is there any timeline on getting Quebec in? Because that's always a challenge to get their information.
Yeah, we've been working directly with the NRC, and my understanding is that they were creating an agreement with the province of Quebec so that they could also have access to that information. So I believe that the NRC does now have some sort of agreement in place. We're just waiting to actually get the licensing agreement from them. So I've been communicating with them. I mean, if anyone out there's in Quebec, feel free to write. But I've been writing the NRC for the past few months to continuously ask for access to that. So I can't say exactly when they'll get back to me, but we're actively trying to get the information.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sooner the better.
Yeah,
Adrian, go ahead.
great.
Well, yeah, I guess 2 points. First is when the National Building Code was released, I think it was a little over a month or maybe even less than that when I saw Trax go from essentially having it published or the National Building Code in 2025 being published in January, early January. And then it actually going into Trax. It was before February that you guys actually had it up.
Yeah,
So
came in really quick. Yeah, yeah,
and then the second item, I will agree. Trying to work with the Quebec codes like the RBQ can be challenging. Sonia, I can connect you guys to the person that's at the National Building Code level. Maybe if there's additional support you guys need, let me know. I can connect you.
yeah. We'd love to see it here. Okay, so here's one for you that's kind of way off topic, but it'd be so great. Has there been any thought or discussion or activity on getting Canadian standards into Trax?
Yeah. So candidly, we've had conversations with different standards organizations, even just about getting the metadata into Trax so that if there's a particular standard that's referenced in the codes, you could look at like a preview of what the abstract is for that standard before you navigate away to consider purchasing it, for example.
Yeah,
We obviously would love to have the actual standards in our tool, but we wanted to start gently by having a conversation about the abstracts and the metadata. And they were quite resistant to that, even though it's publicly accessible information. We definitely could have just gotten that off of the internet and gone ahead and put it in, but we'd like to develop relationships with all these organizations and do everything in a consensual way. So, unfortunately, the business model for standards isn't one that we've been able to find a way to productively work with them yet. Um, but we're still working on it. So we hope to eventually, as I mentioned, we hope to have things like Accessibility Standards Canada's standards in our system. I know those are probably not exactly the standards that you all would be interested in as Fenestration Canada. But as we can start getting more that are just more publicly available in there, hopefully we can chip away at that over time. But yeah, things like CSA or any others are a bit challenging just because of how their payment structure is done.
Yeah, that would be really, really helpful. So if there's anything we can do to support that activity, by all means. Another question from Jatin. He says, "Sorry, I got one more. Is there a way to actually compare codes within one tab amongst two provinces?" Says he just signed up for the free trial. At least I assume free trial, and he can't find a way to do it.
Okay.
Are you able to show us that, or?
Yeah. As I mentioned, here, let me do this live for you. Um, as I mentioned, because comparing two different documents is still an active area of research, there's no like best way of doing that computationally. It is still a work in progress, but I'll show you what we have currently. And if there are specific things that you're looking to compare that we don't already have in the system, you can always write us and I'll show you how you can do that. If we have a lot of customers asking for the same things, then we'll sometimes make changes when we can. And that's sometimes how we find out about the best new features that we need to offer. So we're very open to your feedback. So let me just share screen and I'll show you what I'm thinking of, and then you can let me know if I'm on the right track for your question. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen
Yep,
now.
yep, that's good.
Perfect. Okay, so for example, if you go into the library, and let's say you're in BC just for fun, it'll pull up all the different content that we have. If you go into, for example, the British Columbia Building Code, what you're going to want to look for, as soon as this loads, the Wi-Fi is a little slow in this building. There we go. So what you'll see up here at the top is you'll see the document version. So you can look at all the versions that we have in our system. And then right next to it is this compare document icon. So if you click on that, it'll show you what you're able to compare in that particular code type. So you can turn it on. And then this drop down will show you what your comparison options are. So it'll show you what you're able to compare to. For the most part, we've got comparisons of national to provincial, just because that's what we've been asked for the most, because most provincial versions are based on the national. So that's typically what we've had customers asking for comparisons to, so that they can see how things have kind of flowed through into the provincial version. But if there's specific provinces you want to compare back and forth, another option is to just open multiple browser windows. So if you want to just open a second window, you can do a side by side. Unfortunately, it won't show you, for example, all the specific changes like this feature does. But if we have enough requests for a certain feature, we'll consider adding it. So your option would be to go to your profile, and there's an option here called feature request. So if there's something that you use really frequently that you notice isn't in the system, you can always give us that feedback here, and you can see everything that other people have asked for, and
Oh,
you can
that's
also
excellent.
upvote things too. So we do
Yeah,
our
that's
best to
great.
keep on top of this as well as on top of all the code updates. So I can't guarantee a timeline for things, but you can always write us or you can add things here, and we're very open to conversations. So let us know what you're looking for.
Okay, sounds like you answered him, so that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So maybe a question from me. Given the conversations with NRC, is there any discussion about the tool being used a bit more broadly in the code development world? So we used Teamworks in the background as kind of the call it repository for a lot of it. It's not great. If I'm sorry, CBHCC team in general. That is not nice, but it is not fun to work in. Has there been discussions with NRC about potentially looking at a tool like Trax to kind of conduct more of, call it, the code management side of it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something we could work on together. I know in our consultation work with NRC, I know that they are in the process of looking at their backend systems and how they kind of review, and that they've been looking for new software tools in that arena. Um, I'm not sure what our specific conversations with them have been like. So yeah, maybe that's something we could follow up on together.
Sounds good. We'll add it to a list of getting Quebec under wraps and then CDHCC. We're just going to solve all the code problems in one conversation.
There
That
you
sounds
go. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions for Ellen?
I'd also love to hear your feedback because a lot of the customers that I talk to are building officials or architects, planners, people like that. So this is one of my first times, aside from chatting with Adrian, to talk with actual fenestration manufacturers. So if there's anything that you're like wanting to share or feedback that you have, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, anybody that doesn't have this, I highly recommend, going in at least starting with the free version to get a feel for it. It's a real time saver. The ability to compare things and the search functions are so great. You can save yourself a ton of time looking for something in the code that if you're doing it through a PDF, it can be pretty challenging. So highly recommend trying it out. And I think you'll like it. So okay, no more questions. So Alan, thank you very much. Appreciate your time today to share a bit of the ins and outs of how Trax works and share with our members on the features that it has. So appreciate your time. Couple of quick housekeeping. We've got a couple more tech talks coming up this month, April 28th. We've got a session from our Hinge Door group on components and performance systems. So watch for that. And then April 30th, we have a tech talk on managing solar heat gain and fenestration. We're going to be looking at some case studies, some builder input and feedback on it, as well as some energy advisors are going to join us in that session to talk about some of the challenges with solar heat gain and what we're going to see coming down the line with changes in the National Building Code around solar heat gain. So thanks everybody for your time. Ellen, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your info. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks very much.